You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It is season 3. It is episode 9, Cubs Bullpen Bump. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on the socials. Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram. Of course, we're on Facebook, or email us at flythew670@gmail.com. Crawly, happy weekend. Hope you had a good one. We're back to Monday, and we finally got an important piece to the Cubs bullpen moving forward.
Yeah, we were talking about this, and I've always felt that Jed has done a good job of putting bullpens together. And so the Cubs finally made a move, We've been talking about this, and on Thursday when we were recording, former Cub David Robertson signed a 1-year, $11.5 million deal with the Texas Rangers. The Cubs made their move on Saturday, signing former Astro reliever Hector Neris. Hector Neris, he's getting a little bit older, but he's still a reliable veteran presence that I think the Cubs bullpen really, truly needs. He's 35 years old. He spent most of his career with the Phillies, and in the last 2 seasons, he's been with the Astros. Now, last season was really good for Neris. He appeared in 71 games, had a 6-3 record with a 1.71 ERA. He had 31 holds, 2 saves out of 3 opportunities, struck out 77 batters, and walked 31. But the thing about him is that Neris is an extremely durable arm. He's a guy that just, you could just keep handing him the ball, and he's very dependable. He's not injury prone. Since becoming a full-time reliever in 2016, Dustin, he's appeared in 70 or more games in 5 of the last 7 seasons. I'm not counting 2020, obviously. But he features a four-seamer, a split finger, a sinker, and a slider. And I guess for me, Dustin, I'm kind of just interested. I know that Mark Leiter kind of struggled at the end, and they said there might have been some back issues or something, but it's going to be, I think, good to have somebody that throws that split finger that can kind of, bounce some ideas off Leiter. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it kind of puts Leiter a little bit on tilt, I think, as well. But this is a really good signing. I mean, some of the complaints I heard were about the age, but the durability factor makes it like the age doesn't really matter. Plus, he's a guy that's been pitching for teams that have been playing in postseasons, right? He's been around the Phillies. He's been around the Astros. He strikes guys out. He knows high leverage situation. Now, I still don't know. I don't think you know. I don't think the Cubs know. And if they do know, they're not going to tell us that he's the 9th inning guy, he's the 7th inning guy, he's the 8th inning guy. What I know is that the Cubs feel good about giving him the ball in a high leverage situation. That's what I know.
Yeah, absolutely. And last year was a career year. Usually his ERA is around 3.24, and that's what you would expect from him this season. Now, Ken Rosenthal did point out that Neris's average fastball velocity dropped from 94.3 in 2022 to 93 in 23. That's nearly 1.5 miles per hour, according to StatCast. But, the one thing we talked about, Dustin, is that the Cubs needed 2 things from this bullpen this offseason. Number one, they needed veteran leadership, and then they needed a lefty. We don't have the lefty yet, but I think that he's going to provide some really good leadership out there. And this is something that Jose de Jesus Ortiz put up on Twitter. He's a beat writer for the Astros. The Astros deal with Josh Hader puts them as a favorite in the American League this year, I think, but it will be difficult to replace Hector Neris, who will help the Cubs way more than Cub fans realize now. Neris was the glue in the Astros bullpen. He's a revered leader. So, there's the, obviously the wins and losses and the holds and the saves and all those things. But from what Ortiz is saying on this here is that, he also has a lot of the intangibles that when you got, that bullpen that the Cubs had last year, when you're talking about it, they just didn't have that veteran presence. It was supposed to be Boxberger. It didn't end up being that way. So I think that this is something that's going to be really helpful for the young Cubs.
Yep. I like the move. I really, really like the move.
Now, the contract, Dustin, is for 1 year, $9 million, but there is a 2025 player option that converts once he hits 60 appearances. And like I said, he's done that pretty much every single season there is. And so the other thing to keep in mind is that, though, about this whole situation, Dustin, is that the Cubs are going to have to make room on their 40-man roster for Neris, and there hasn't been a corresponding move yet. Now, the Cubs could, just decide to DFA a pitcher, replace one pitcher with another to make room for Neris. I'm just kind of looking at the 40-man roster here, and
you got to guess.
I wonder if Michael Rucker or Keegan Thompson are two guys that I wonder. It may be time, if you got to make a move, but Dustin is they could go a different direction and DFA a position player. So a lot of times with your 40-man roster, you put guys on there to protect them from getting picked up in like the Rule 5 draft, right? And so if you look at the Cubs 40-man roster, and we've talked about this before, the Cubs really have a surplus of top prospect outfielders in the system. You have right now on the 40-man roster, Kevin Alcantara, Alexander Canario, PCA, and Dustin, I'm going to bring up a name here, Brennan Davis. So Davis has struggled with injuries the last few years. Remember, he was a top prospect for a while. He was the Futures MVP. You just got to wonder if the Cubs may say, hey, we got enough outfielders. He's had some injury issues. We move on. He's really young. I don't know if they're going to do that. I think Keegan Thompson, to me, is the one that just kind of keeps flashing. I keep seeing a red light flashing in that direction. But it's really something to think about. So we'll see what happens. Now, remember that MLB teams can have 13 pitchers on their roster. So 5 starters and 8 bullpen arms, right? Now, I got 4 starters penciled in. I mean, you can not even penciled in. You can put this in pen right here. Steele, Hendricks, Tyone, and Imanaga. Those are your starters.
Assuming they're all healthy, those are your starters, right? No question.
Right. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, who is going to get the 5th spot in the rotation? Did I love seeing Jordan Wicks? Yeah, but he's still a little green. You know what I mean? It was good for a short month or something like that. But I still, remember when we had the quotes from Craig Counsell, how interested he was in Hayden Wesneski. Is Caleb Killian a guy that kind of figures things out? Is Ben Brown going to get a shot? So I think there's going to be competition for the 5th spot. You might even throw Javier Assad in that mix. I don't know if they like him better as a swingman.
But a couple of those names, and I agree with everything you're saying, right? But right. as we move into the bullpen, if a couple of those guys aren't in the starting rotation, are they in the bullpen, or are they sending them down to work on making sure they're stretched out and making sure they're ready to start if that's in fact what they need to do?
I would say, like, when you talk about Ben Brown, when you talk about Caleb Killian, Hayden Wesneski, all of those guys, I think you could keep pitching and stretch them out in Iowa. Right now, I looked at Fangraphs today, Dustin, and they have projected the Cubs bullpen as the following: Albert Pujols, the recently acquired Hector Neris, Julian Merriweather, Drew Smiley, Mark Leiter Jr., Jose Cuas, the newly acquired Yency Almonte. Remember, he was in that deal that brought Michael Busch over as well, and Javier Assad. That's what you have right now, okay? Mm-hmm. And so Drew Smiley technically is your only lefty. Now, the other issue to kind of keep in mind are options. And for those of you that are watching on 670 The Score, the YouTube channel, you're looking at who has options, who's available to be optioned if need be. Albert Pujols actually has one option left. You're not going to use that. You're not going to do it, but he does have an option. Hector Neris, no, you're not. He doesn't. Julian Merriweather has 0 options. Drew Smiley, nope, he's not someone that can be optioned anymore at this time. Mark Leiter Jr., 0 options. Jose Cuas has 2 options. And Yency Almonte, who, again, they just picked up, does not have any options. Javier Assad has 2 options. So remember, like, let's say you get into some sort of mess where it's like a 15, 16 inning game and you need to bring an arm up. Well, you're going to have an issue because, the only guys you can really think about doing are Cuas and Almonte and Assad, which I think they'll do. But if you did Mark Leiter Jr. or you did Almonte, you'd have to DFA him and they'd have to pass through waivers before you could continue having them on your team.
Right. So you got to be real careful. Right.
Right. So there's not a lot of leeway here. So it's, there's a lot of pitchers, like I said, on the 40-man roster, but I just don't think there's going to be a lot of shuttling going around. I think if there is, it really truly is going to be in one of those emergency type situations, but Quas is a guy, that has two options, and they've kind of put him into a situation last year that was difficult. They had him pitching like every game. That wasn't what he was expected to do. It just was out of necessity. So I think, when we listened to Craig Counsell the other day, and he's talking about bullpens, I just remember him kind of talking a little bit about how he doesn't really know what the roles are just yet. And again, remember, Mark Leiter was DFA'd last year.
Yeah,
He was
right.
he was not even supposed to be really part of this team. Drew Smiley wasn't supposed to be in the bullpen. Julian Merriweather, they picked him up off waivers. That was a reclamation project, and
it worked out, right?
It worked out.
Yeah.
Some do, some don't, and that's
Right.
that's where things get really tricky. And this is why Jed always says is that bullpens are volatile, and you look at what happened, and it's why you don't want to give. Obviously Josh Hader's a special circumstance. He's done it for a long time. He throws a lot of heat, but in general, it's why you see the Cubs shy away from giving out the big contracts is for a reliever, because most of these times these guys may just have a great year. They may not, they may be off, and you have to swap them in with someone else. I still think that the Cubs have a lot of depth. There's, Daniel Palencia is not on here. Daniel Palencia, if you remember last year, he came up, the guy throws 100 miles an hour.
Right.
He's probably the hardest thrower that the Cubs have in the bullpen between him and Julian Merriweather. Luke Little, you remember he came up. He was a lefty that had a little, but I think a lot of those guys are still young and could benefit. It's not like they're not going to get anything out of pitching in Iowa. They'll get, they'll learn a little bit, and there'll be guys that they'll have to get out. So I think what I like about the bullpen, Dustin, is especially getting that veteran. I would still like a veteran lefty arm. I don't know if Drew Smiley does it for me. I would say that this bullpen to me has more depth than last year. I think last year we saw what happened. They had injuries. They didn't have enough guys. And by the end of the year, Julian Merriweather was the last man standing, and poor Jose Quas, and so I would like to see, like I said, I like the depth. I like what the Cubs have bubbling up underneath when you talk about Iowa, and you talk about even some of the guys that are going to be coming from Tennessee. You got some skill here. I just wonder if Jed's done just yet.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, right now the bullpen is in better shape at this moment than it was last year at this moment. I feel much more confident about the bullpen a year removed from last year's going into spring training. You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast, Cubs Bullpen Bump. It's season 3. It's episode 9. Don't forget to listen, download, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. And don't forget to leave those 5-star reviews. In this segment, Crawly's talking to Lloyd Sy. Who's Lloyd Sy? Diehard Cubs fan. Jeopardy contestant. He went viral for his takedown of Albert Pujols during the Jeopardy Champions Wild Card round.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a late night episode of Fly the W Live. Joining me, the viral Cub fan, Jeopardy sensation, Lloyd Sy. Lloyd, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Crawly. Thanks for having me on. This is I am stoked for this. This is great. These are my people.
Yeah, absolutely. They are your people. If you've been watching Cubs Twitter, they are 100% your people. Lloyd, let's kind of go back a little bit. How did you first become a contestant on Jeopardy?
Yes, so there's a several step audition process. First you have to take what's called the anytime test. This is just basically like a little flash game on your browser where they ask you 50 questions and you answer whatever you can. And I did that about 2 summers ago while I was sitting in a Starbucks back in Rockford. And answered that. And then after that, like a week later, they called me in for a first audition. And then once I did that, they called me back for a second audition. And then, after that, it was like, all right, well, we've seen what you're like. And if we want you on the show, we'll call you sometime the next year and a half. So I just kind of forgot about it for a while. And then in November of 2022, I got the call from the producers, which is the call that every person who wants to be on Jeopardy loves to get. And they said, can you come out in like 3 weeks to tape for Jeopardy? And I said, of course. And that's how I went on for the first time. And that was like a year ago. But then they brought me back for a tournament, and that's where we got the Pujols question yesterday.
All right. So you're growing up. Did you watch a lot of Jeopardy growing up? Were you always a big fan of the show? Because I was a big fan. My mom and I would watch it. We'd get all psyched up and see who was smarter. How did you get hooked on Jeopardy?
Yeah, well, it did start really, really early, probably like 2001, 2002. That's when I first started watching. My parents, my grandparents have all been big fans. And, you know, I loved the idea. I loved learning things. I've loved learning things my whole life. When I was in high school, I did Quiz Bowl. And so that's where I learned a lot of the things that helped me on the show. But yeah, always been a big Jeopardy fan.
It's literally like I go back, you know, Alex Trebek days. I mean,
Yes,
just phenomenal. But like you said, you first appear on Jeopardy, you win 2 out of the 3 games, you collect more than $50,000 in October. How do you prepare yourself, right? Like I can't even imagine. Like the studio's dark, you got the live audience, and then they do "This is Jeopardy" thing. Like, what are you mentally doing to prepare?
Well, I mean, you're freaking out, you know. It's like it's nothing can prepare you for that moment when you're up there for your very first game, you know. And it's just such sensory overload in every single way. And my very first game, I was up against a really, really good player, this guy named Ray Lalonde back last year, and he had won 13 games. So, you know, actually this sort of put the pressure off because I was like, there's no way I'm going to win this thing, you know? And I won by the slimmest of margins and got really lucky in certain ways. And then for the second and third games, it was actually kind of nice because I was the only one who had experience up there. I was getting all these new players. Yeah, nothing prepares you though. There's like 300 cameras all over the place. And you know, there's a whole studio audience, and at every single moment, you are aware that a camera's on you that's going to broadcast you to an entire national audience.
Absolutely. And when you take a look at this right now, then when did you find out about, you know, you were on 3 times, you won a couple times. When did you find out about this Champions Wildcard competition? And can you tell our listeners what that's all about?
Of course. Yeah. So if anyone any of the listeners have watched Jeopardy in the past, they might know that there's something called the Tournament of Champions at the end of every season. And that they bring back everyone who's won at least 4 games. And I won 2 games before I lost. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to go back for the Tournament of Champions. That's okay. I had a good time on Jeopardy. And I guess I'll never come back here. About 3 or 4 months after I was on the show, I actually got a text from Ray, the guy I beat the first game, telling me that I was going to be back on the show because they had announced publicly that they were expanding the Tournament of Champions to include this new tournament for people who had only won once or twice. And that's called the Champions Wildcard. And that's what we're in right now. And that's the first time I knew we were going to do that. But I didn't hear until like December that they were going to have me on. And they gave me a couple of options as to when I could tape. And so I taped about 3 weeks ago, and the episodes are showing now.
Right. And just to go even crazier with your thing today, there was a whole Taylor Swift themed category.
Yeah.
All the categories were under her song titles. Is that right? That's
right. It was divisive. I loved it. You know, I was like, this is an episode that's now destined to go viral because we have thrown a bone to the most viral fandom in the entire world. But yeah, they had category names like Bad Blood and Our Song. But like, for instance, in the Bad Blood category, everything was about blood in the body, you know, and in the Our Song category, everything was about music. So, yeah.
All the Swifties thought that they were going to ace Jeopardy and they were disappointed. But not only did you have the Swifties getting all excited about Jeopardy, but you're there. The category, I believe, is Bald is Beautiful.
Yeah.
And this was the question that was posed to you.
It's beautiful for 1,200, please.
This St. Louis Cardinals great slugged his 700th home run in 2022, his last season in Major League Baseball. Lloyd.
Who is the wretched Albert Pujols?
Wow, yes. The answer is correct. I can't speak to the adjective.
Go Cubs.
So here's what I'm going to tell you, man. You know, you're sitting there and first off, I mean, they got to give a warning, some sort of trigger warning if they're going to put that guy's face on there, right? They're going to tell somebody. But you're sitting there, right, as a Cub fan, and all of a sudden, Albert Pujols' big shiny head comes up. Do you know right away? You're like, oh, I got to say something.
Oh, well, it just kind of came out. I don't even think I was intending to do something. I just can't think about Albert Pujols without just like anger and rage seething in me, So I wasn't even really aware that I was going to say that he was wretched until I said he was wretched.
Tell me a little bit about your Cub fandom, because obviously, that hatred, that's a pure Cub fan at heart. Tell me a little bit about your Cub fandom. How did you get into the Cubs? Who was the one that really kind of hooked you, and who was some of your favorite players growing up?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I'd love to talk about this. So I've been a Cubs fan since 2003. A tough year for us, In fact, I think my earliest Cub memory might be that Game 6 of the NLCS that year. I think I was at a Japanese restaurant watching that game and falling in love with the Cubs and seeing this loss. So I started with the Bartman days. And the year after was the year that Derek Lee was almost triple crowning at like the All-Star break, I think. And so Derek Lee was a big one for me. Aramis, and of course those great pitchers we had, Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor. A really good memory I have is, I think my very first Cubs game in person was like in the summer of 2006 or 2007. And it was against the Cardinals, actually. And I remember in like the 6th or 7th inning, Pujols comes up to the plate and shoots one that looks like it's destined to go into the bleachers. And Juan Pierre just runs to the center field wall, and everyone thinks it's going out of the park. But he makes the catch at the wall. And I was there in person for that, and that was just a beautiful moment for me. So, I mean, yeah, it goes back to when I was 9-10 years old. Yeah.
That's, just fantastic. I was there in 2003, and unfortunately I was at Game 6 and Game 7. So right now, though, these are some of your fans here. Dubs is saying here for the best Jeopardy player ever. Danny Rocket says, I'd like to buy you a shot of Malort. Steve Winkler says, congratulations. Kyle with the Jeopardy question of the day here. What is Jed better resign Bellinger?
That's right. Yeah.
And then obviously there's a lot of people proud of you from Rockford. You graduated from Rockford. You are now officially the biggest Rockford Cub fan I know, because you're above DeCipio. Cub fan Jeff says, so awesome. I mean, it is absolutely one of the best things ever. And so right now we're kind of sitting there, and there are people that want to take you to Cubs games. And have you kind of been surprised at the way that Cub fans have been reacting?
I'm not surprised. I'm grateful is what I am. Because before the Cubs fans found me, the Cardinals fans found me. And so like 12 hours ago or so, I was just like, so I'm a professor and I was about to teach my class. And like right before I teach my class, I get all these notifications on Twitter. But it's actually just Cardinals fans just calling me every single nasty name in the book. I think, and this is before most of the Cubs fans find me. But tonight's been great. Tonight I've been receiving so much support, and of course it's the Cubs fans, right?
Yes, and again, I got a feeling that you're right now you're at Yale and English professor.
That's right.
And are you coming back to home for the summer for a little bit?
Yeah, at least for some time. Yeah.
So you're definitely able to go and catch some games with some people, right? Because I'm telling you here, I got a list of people lining up here. I literally, before we even got on here, we were talking Bleacher Nation excited, like obvious shirts excited. I mean, these people are just like, I want to go to a game with Lloyd. Are you down to go to some games with some Cub fans?
I'm so down. Yeah, of course.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna do, Lloyd. Is I think I'm gonna try to find a Cubs Cardinals game. And hopefully in the summer, and you and I can go to a Cubs Cardinals game on my treat in my seats, and hopefully, we'll have some fun. We'll do a whole little tour here. We got the Club 400 condo that maybe you could stop by and visit. But I think that or maybe we even go to the bleachers. That's what I think. People right now are saying, get Lloyd to the bleachers, and we'll try to make a whole day out of it. We'll have my Thai guy out there, Bleacher Jeff. I mean, everybody will be there, just kind of ready to cheer you on. And I think that's the thing, man, is that we were talking, you and I, a little bit earlier, is that you did what every Cub fan needs to do, which is to badmouth Albert Pujols on live TV. Well, it wasn't live, it was taped, but to be able to get that out there to the entire world, that you have a special place in our heart. Now, the funny thing is that I saw that you know, this picture of you and Ken Jennings. I told you I had a Ken Jennings story.
Okay.
Our good friend Michael Bowling, who works for Cubs Productions, YouTube, all that stuff, he had a trivia contest where you got to go up against Gary Pressey for Cubs trivia. So there he is, Ken Jennings. They take him up to the booth, and Gary Pressey beats him in Cubs trivia. But on social media night, the legendary social media night, I went up there against Gary Pressey, and I took him on mano a mano, one-on-one, and I was able to beat him. I did not beat him. We tied. They ran out of questions.
Oh boy, that's great. That's awesome.
So needless to say, now your students, do they know about your Cub fandom at all?
I don't know. I mean, I actually just started teaching them last week, so we haven't had too much opportunity to talk about things. And and I teach Native American literature and culture, so it's not like the Cubs often come up in that subject. But yeah, I hope to maybe I'll wear a Cubs hat.
Maybe a Cubs hat or maybe a Cubs shirt.
Maybe a Cubs shirt, yeah.
Well, speaking of, your biggest fan is here. We're going to add them to the stage. Please welcome Lloyd's biggest fan, Joe Johnson of Obvious Shirts. Joe, how are you, buddy?
Crawly, doing good. Lloyd, pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure too. It's an honor.
Yeah, we just became Twitter friends like literally 5 minutes ago. Yeah, I remember I missed yesterday's filming, but I remember I watched you like early 2023. I remember you like gave Shannon Sharp a shout out and Nick Wright.
That's right.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool because I do remember watching you like almost, I don't know, what is it?
About a year ago. Yeah.
About a year ago. Yeah. Just thought that was really cool. And on behalf of all, maybe not all, maybe 99% of Cub fans, thank you for representing Cubs fandom like a true champ, and ignore the Cardinals fans. Cardinal fans are going to Cardinals fan. It's very typical of them. I'm not surprised, but I won't be long. I just wanted to come on here and meet you and say hi. I want to offer you, in honor of Albert Pujols' number 5 Cardinals jersey, we're going to give you a $500 gift card and a Ryan Sandberg and Kerry Wood autograph signed 8x10 from us. So if you can give Crawly your info, maybe like after the call, and I'll get it from Crawly. We'll send that out to you first thing in the morning. And I just wanted to say thanks, and you're my hero.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's so generous. Thank you so much.
Well, we said something about you wearing a Cub shirt, and the second Lloyd.
Oh yeah. Take it away, Crawly.
The second Joe heard that you were going to be on, he sent me this, and so Lloyd, this is your very own one of one Obvious shirt. For those of you listening on the podcast, it says, "Who is the wretched Albert Pujols?" Lloyd. What do you think?
Yes, we will be sending that too.
I love it. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're so no, Lloyd. Thank you.
You are, not all heroes wear capes, Lloyd, and you are our hero right now tonight, man. You have taken over Cubs Twitter, and everybody is so happy to have been a part of this.
Oh well, I'm the happiest. Thank you all so much.
Pleasure, Lloyd.
We definitely want to see you, Lloyd, with a picture of you teaching your class in the shirt. And again, when summer comes around and it's Cubs Cardinals, I think a party in the bleachers. Danny Rockets here. Maybe we'll have the Bleacher Bums band play something. We'll have a lot of fun, Lloyd. We thank you so much for jumping on the Fly the W podcast. And again, on behalf of all Cub fans, the wretched Albert Pujols.
All right, go Cubs.
This is season 3, episode 9 of the Fly the W670 podcast, Cubs Bullpen Bump. Don't forget to listen, download, subscribe to Fly the W podcast, and leave us a 5-star review. Crawly, we talked about the bullpen in the first segment of this podcast, but the Cubs also made another minor move to the bullpen.
How about a little reunion? Carl Edwards Jr., the string being slinger, is returning to the Cubs. on a minor league deal with an invite to spring training. Dustin, I'm sure you remember Carl on the mound, 10th inning, game 7 of the World Series. I don't think he expected to be there, but there he was. He gets the first 2 outs. Everything's looking good, but the 2 guys that were really grinders and a pain in the ass to get out the entire series. Brandon Geyer draws a 2-out walk, and then you have an RBI
Do we have to
single.
go over this again?
Yes. An RBI single by Rajay Davis to make it a 1-run game. Mike Montgomery comes in. He gets Michael Martinez to hit a weak grounder to Chris Bryant, throws it to Anthony Rizzo to end the 108-year drought. Dustin, I think about it a lot. I mean, like, you are literally in the probably most watched game, I would say significance-wise, in baseball history, when you're on that extra inning game between the 2 teams that had the longest droughts in the World Series. And he was 1 out away, Dustin, from being the guy that threw that final pitch. And I know it probably doesn't mean a big deal because guess what? Still has a ring and all that stuff. But I'm telling you, in the world of autographs and those type of things, Mike Montgomery does it all the time. Final out, last pitch, whatever you want him to inscribe. He gets a little bit of extra cabbage every time he writes that down. So I never have heard Carl talk about it, but it would be interesting just to hear what he has to say,
Yeah, about that situation, right? Yeah.
Right. He was almost there. And so he's bounced around since the Cubs traded him in 2019. He had some stops in San Diego, Seattle, Atlanta, Toronto, and finally he's been with the Nationals the last 2 seasons, but his 2023 season was cut short with right shoulder inflammation. He elected free agency, and he's going to have to try. Like I said, he's got minor league contract, but he is invited to big league camp to try and win a spot. But Dustin, this is another guy, like we were talking about in segment 1, that, okay, you can put him in Iowa and he's a guy that has experience. Does he still have something to offer? I think he might.
Yeah. Now, I mean, it's worth a flyer, right?
Right. And the funny thing is that with Carl Edwards, I actually saw him the Sunday of CubsCon. So CubsCon ends and he was doing an autograph signing in Bridgeview. This is a picture of me. I have a World Series 16x20 I'm giving him. And then I also got an 8x10 of the 2 of us signed, but I just it was just odd because I'm like, oh, he's in Chicago. I don't know if he talked to anybody then or what happened, but it's good to have him back. It's a familiar face.
Yeah. Good guy, nice guy, right? I heard he's a really good guy.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy, really friendly guy. And so it's going to be fun. I'll be seeing him out in Mesa, I'm sure, but the Cubs also signed another lefty, Dustin. So that's what we talked about, just kind of throwing your chips in. This kid right here, his name is Blake Wyman, and he was career minor leaguer. He's 28-year-old lefty. And so Driveline, which is a place where pitchers go and they work on different mechanics and stuff like that, they have these pro days where people can come and see some of these reclamation projects. And so the Cubs decided to give this guy a shot. And, what does it hurt to have one more lefty with you,
Can't hurt. Doesn't really cost anything, right? So
no. But one person we won't be seeing in the Cubs minor league system this year is 2022 12th round pick Matthew Peters, who tested positive for a PED.
Whoops.
Yep. He's obviously not like a high round draft pick, but it's just, these guys still do it and you have a chance of getting caught. So who knows?
Yeah, not smart. Not smart at all. What's the latest on Cody Bellinger? That's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, or however that phrasing goes.
Yeah, that dance is going to keep happening. I don't think we're getting any kind of resolution anytime soon, but there's been a couple interesting nuggets. But here's the thing, Dustin, you don't know if it's the team feeding somebody information. You don't know if it's the agent feeding someone information, but David Vassa, who's host of the Dodgers Talk for AM 570 LA Sports and works for MLB Network, said, I know many people assume that it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to sign with the Cubs, and that may eventually happen. But from what I'm being told, the Angels have interest in Cody Bellinger and have had discussions with Scott Boras and Cody Bellinger. And we all know Artie Moreno, the Angels owner. When he spends big on offense. And the Angels do need a left-handed hitting outfielder. So it does make sense if they can move him between first base and center field the way the Cubs did with Bellinger, that he would be a valuable piece for him. So, we haven't heard anything about the Yankees. We haven't heard anything about Toronto in a while, but now all of a sudden the Angels are getting tossed up. And I don't know, Dustin. I mean, obviously the big move was losing Shohei Ohtani, and Artie Moreno is a guy that likes to spend freely. So could be a possibility. Like I said, I just don't know.
That screams agent. That screams agent plotted news to me.
I don't disagree with you. It's the thing I do worry about, Dustin, is as long as this dance keeps going, is you're going to have bitter feelings. You know what I mean? Like,
right. What's his mindset going to be when he actually does get here, assuming he does get here, right? Is he going to be all in? Is he holding a grudge? All great points.
Right. And so if all of a sudden the Angels do, because Artie Moreno is a guy that kind of spends like a drunken sailor on leave a lot of time. I mean, what's to say, you know what, if all of a sudden Cody says, you know what, forget it. This team wants me and it'll give me an opportunity and I'm going to take it. So on the other hand, though, Odyssey insider and friend of the pod, Bob Nightingale, said in his latest Nightingale notebook, spring training is less than 3 weeks away, but Cody Bellinger and JD Martinez still have not received a formal contract offer. Two-time Cy Young Award winner Blake Snell's loan offer was a 6-year, $150 deal from the New York Yankees after Snell requested $270 million over 9 years. Dustin, we talked about this last time, about the number of top-notch players that are still out there, like literally reigning Cy Young Award winner, comeback player of the year in Cody Bellinger. JD Martinez had a great season last season. But the fact that they're all Boris clients and the fact that the money to me is so far off, like if the Yankees are offering 150 and Snell saying 270, you're not even close.
No.
You're nowhere.
I mean, you are miles apart.
Right. And if the Cubs are saying 150 or 160 for Bellinger and they're asking 240, you're still not close. I mean, we're talking about close to like $100 million off. And so I just, did Boris just, I don't know, did he overestimate his hand, or did he think that people were just going to be running all over to get these, some of his clients? I don't know. I'm very curious to see how this happens.
Yeah, we'll see how it happens. But yeah, I think Boris is planting stories all over the place because his guys aren't getting what anybody wants.
Right. This is where it gets tricky. And so John Morosi tweeted out on this morning, Justin Turner's free agent decision will occur this week. Now, Morosi mentioned that his market is helped by multiple large market teams looking for an impact corner infielder. He goes on to mention the Cubs, the Giants, and the Blue Jays. Dustin, last year, Turner slashed 276, 345, 800 with 23 home runs and 96 RBIs, but primarily as a DH. Last year, he started at DH 98 times, first base 35 times. He only played third base 7 times. Now, is that because he can't anymore or because the Red Sox have Rafael Devers at third? Right?
I think it's because they have Rafael Devers at third.
Now, I'm not saying Turner can play 60 games at third, but if he did some sort of combination of DH first and third, wouldn't that really solve a lot of problems for the Cubs?
Yeah. Yes, it would.
Because I'm looking at this right here, and Matt Chapman is still out there. Again, another Boris client. But from all accounts, I mean, he had a down year offensively, and you're taking a look at Matt Shaw, who everybody that we've talked to, Dustin, every prospect expert has Matt Shaw being one of the Cubs' top prospects. There's been people that have had him ahead of Cade Horton. Okay. So if you're telling me you're gonna sign Matt Chapman for a 5 or 6 year deal, well, then where does Matt Shaw play? Because he's not playing second and he's not playing short. So you're gonna block one of your top prospects. I don't see that happening. So for me, when I take a look at third, I'm not. We talked about this last time. I'm not excited that if today was opening day, that it would be, sort of wisdom, morale, magical combination thing. I think we saw how that went last year. I wasn't super impressed. If Justin Turner still has some in the tank, and this is another guy that has leadership all over him, he's a no leader.
Yeah, he's been in big games, played in big markets. I mean, I think I think Cubs fans would fall in love with him.
Right. And I think about the fact is that Matt Shaw is going to be coming up, possibly if he has a good season in the minors, he might be a guy that comes up in July, August, September at some point in time. But let's keep in
They
mind
might need him sooner rather than that later, Crawly, based on the roster right now.
But remember we got excited about the same thing with Trey Mancini and Eric Hosmer, and we're like, they can teach Matt Mervis the ropes, and all they got to do is be serviceable, and they were not serviceable, Dustin. So I'm part of me has kind of got that in the back of my head, but we're the bullpen is starting to come into focus. It's still third and first base, and I think if Cody Bellinger does come back and is willing to play first, I think that opens up a lot of opportunities. And I think that if Cody comes back, I think I'd be less panicky about that trio of Cubs at third base when we're talking about Magical Wisdom and Morel.
Yeah, I think the key word there, though, Crawly, was less panicky. Okay.
Definitely.
That means you're still panicked, right? It's less panicked. So
less panicked. But, with spring training coming up, Dustin, and I am nothing if not somebody that is a uniform aficionado. I don't know if you saw this.
Yes, you are.
But we have had our first sneak peek of the Cubs' new spring training hat. And to me, Dustin, it is sharp. For the listeners, it is a powder, like what would you say, North Carolina blue?
Yeah, Tar Heel blue. Yeah, not Cubby blue. The brim is Cubby blue. The bear is Cubby blue. I like it. I think it's cool. I'm not a big hat guy anymore. I used to never not be seen in a hat, basically. But now when I wear a hat, I get a raging headache all the time.
Well, so what you got to do is you got to buy the Flex Fit, and that way it's a lot better, like the stretchy ones.
I'll tell you what. You buy me one, I'll give it a try, and then I'll let you know.
But I think it looks awesome. I am definitely going to buy one. And for people that didn't know, the last couple of years,
it is cool. I mean, listen, Crawly, I'm not saying. I mean, I like it. I really do. As long as I know not everybody can see what we're looking at, but visualize, right? Radio, theater of the mind. Neither you or I are as good as Pat Hughes at describing things, but this hat has one of those gold stickers on it with like the sizing of the hat. This is flex fitting. Take the sticker off.
Oh yeah.
Don't you take the sticker off, right, Crawly?
Oh, yeah.
I can't stand when people wear the sticker. Like, take the sticker off. Why is the sticker still on? I don't get it.
Makes no sense. And the other thing, Dustin, that makes no sense is the last couple of years, the cap for the spring training had mesh on all the back and the sides. So the front was like normal paneling, but the back had mesh. And so if you went out to Arizona, not everyone goes out to Arizona, but if you went out to Arizona, you'd get sunburned through the mesh if you didn't make sure that you took proper precautions.
But is that part of the flex part of this thing when it's
no, it was just the design.
You can tell how long it's been since I bought a hat. So
well, maybe I'll buy you one when I'm out in Arizona, see if we can get them, and hopefully that'll change your mind on the whole flex fit, because I know what you're talking about.
The look is cool. I'd like a t-shirt. I like it as a t-shirt. If I could find one of those, maybe I'll have to go to the Cub shop and take a look, or if Obvious Shirts wants to play with that, but they don't really do logos. Everything is just words with Obvious Shirts.
And just so you know, just for everybody that's listening, Joe Johnson from Obvious Shirts has just put out the Rhino Strong series.
Really? I did not know that. Okay. That's cool.
It is very cool. And so 100% of the proceeds go to help with the charity. It's all through charity. I want to say that Sandberg has some cancer charities that he's looking into. So if people are really interested, Joe has done another wonderful job. He's working with the Sandberg family. Joe's not getting one penny for this. This is all to raise money for charity. So if you haven't gone to the Obvious Shirt site, Joe had a design with a rhino on it, and it came out, I think, last year or 2 years ago, that had the 23 on it, but now it's got the Rhino Strong and then the 23 Strong. So for those of you that are just Rhino has posted some updates on Instagram, and he's back home feeling a little bit better, but I think we all want to support Rhino and his family. And again, Rhino's a guy that obviously has big name, but there's a lot of other people dealing with cancer too. So if we can raise money for a good cause and, do a little, represent Rhino, I think it'd be really awesome if on opening day, 40,000 strong are wearing Rhino shirts and hats.
Yep, I would second that opinion you just shared there, Crawly. Well, Crawly, that's a wrap. Don't forget to download, review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow us on all the socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can email us, flythew670@gmail.com, and you can watch us and see pictures of hats on YouTube by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel.
Yep, and the hats are beautiful. The Rhino Strongs are beautiful. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!